Okay, so this is going to be a review on a very cool knife. I picked this up quite a while ago. This is the Benchmade Onslaught. Okay, the product code, and to be honest I forgot, so I'm looking at it right now. It is the 741. You know, when you say it you remember it, of course, but very cool knife. Quite large, obviously. The blade length is 4.5 inches, just under. And by the way, I measured this myself, so I'll post all the actual dimensions of it in the specs below. I'll just copy and paste it from Benchmade's website. So 4.5 inch blade, 5.5 inch handle, and the handle thickness at the thickest point is just over 1/2 inch thick. So very beefy knife. The knife this way is almost just under 1.5 inches, so it's very kind of chunky, and I'll talk about that in a second. But first off, this is a knife designed by Bob Lum, and it is my second knife, or actually this was my first knife designed by Bob Lum, but the other knife I have designed by him is the Bob Lum LFTI. You can see them side by side there. Very different looking knives, but I am a fan of his designs. Okay, so the steel on the blade there is 154 cm, which is nothing new, but I do like it quite a bit. Benchmade uses this steel a lot. Okay, the blade thickness there is 3 millimeters thick. What I really don't like about this knife now is the fact that the tip is super thin. Now, when I bought this, for some reason I didn't notice that. You know, I bought this in a store, so I was actually handling the knife. You know, making sure it worked all nice, that I liked it and stuff, but for some reason I didn't check the tip thickness. Now, I did buy this over a year ago now, but for that reason I don't use this knife hard. I just really don't like the extremely thin tip there. And just to give you a comparison, so you have something to kind of compare it to, you can see the military's tip on the right is substantially thicker. So I mean, the one on the Onslaught here is just paper thin, and I really don't like that. So I wish they had maybe used a thicker blade stock, or just kept the thickness a little bit better towards the tip. You have a flat ground blade there. It looks pretty nice. I do like the upper swedge. Benchmade logo, obviously, and on the other side you have Bob Lum's logo there. Mine is a first production. 784 out of 1,000, which is actually kind of funny because, again, I bought this in stores and this is the exact knife I was holding and playing around with, and for some reason I missed that. You know, I had no clue that this was a first production until I got home, and I was looking at the box and I was like, oh, it says first production here. There's a little sticker. So I took out the knife and I was like, oh, well, what do you know, it's first production. So that was kind of funny. I didn't even notice it in the stores, but apparently I have a first production one. Not something I usually look for, but it is kind of cool. 154 cm stamped on the blade there. And you'll notice that my liners here are not black coated, but it didn't come that way. I actually just took off the black coating on the sides of the liners there myself. I kind of like the contrast between the black and the exposed metal, so that's why I did that. I think it looks pretty nice. You have a thumb hole for the opening, and you know, people argue that Benchmade kind of stole this from Spyderco, whatever. Honestly, I don't care. It works well, so I have no problems with that. That being said, though, I mean, I do understand that they could have used thumb studs. I mean, it's very easy to put a thumb stud there instead of cutting out the hole. In fact, from memory, I think this is right, but I could be wrong, but I was looking at Bob Lum's original design of this, and he obviously didn't have the axis lock. It was a liner lock knife, I think, and also he had a thumb stud, not a thumb hole, so I don't know why Benchmade changed that, but not a huge deal. Again, it does work quite nice. Okay, the locking mechanism is the axis lock, and since the liners came black coated and the axis lock is black coated, I found when I first got this knife, I remembered moving the axis lock back and forth in there was really gritty, but once you kind of wear away the black coating, it becomes really nice, so not a huge problem. Don't worry about that when you first get it. The pivot pin or pivot screw is very nicely done. I really like this. It's almost like a blued finish, not quite blued, but just some kind of, not coating done to it, but I hope you can see that there. Very cool, and it's kind of recessed into a little disc or not disc, but a little washer of metal. And I'm not really describing this well, but you can see that there. Very nice. The pivot screw is also the same. I really like that. I think it looks really, really nice. You can see that the pivot screw is also domed outwards, which I do like. I think it just kind of adds a small touch that's really nice to this knife. The G10 scales are also fantastic. I really like the look of them. They are smooth, you can see that there, but they kind of have a grayish tone to them, and you can really nicely see the pattern there. You have kind of like a little indent cut out there. I think it looks very nice. Even though it is very smooth, it provides a lot of grip. It almost feels like a hard rubber in terms of the traction, so no issues with that. I really like these G10 scales. Okay, this backspacer here runs most of the length up the handle. It is a Zytel backspacer, it is not G10. And that becomes very apparent when you take apart the knife, but just looking at it like this, you wouldn't really know. It does kind of bulge out from the profile of the knife there. You can kind of see how it rises up above the liners, and I do like that, just something a little different. It doesn't really affect the comfort of the knife. And since it is such a large handle, it actually is really, really comfortable to use. It just kind of melts into your hand, and I really like that. You can see the handle here kind of curves down, and I want to do a quick comparison. What I noticed about this knife, which is kind of interesting, is that if you follow the profile of the knife from the tip here to the blade and all the way down to the handle, it's almost exactly the same as the Benchmade Bedlam. And I'll just lie it right on top here and show you what I mean. If you just plop this knife right down on top of the Onslaught, you can see that the bottom line of the knife is very, very similar. You have a very similar blade sweep. Obviously the Bedlam sweeps up just a hair more, but the handles kind of curve down the exact same way, so that's very cool, and I just wanted to show you that. But I do like that quite a bit. It's very comfortable, and I find when it's in your pocket, it is a tip-up carry. When it's in your pocket, since the handle kind of curves down, you kind of use that to pull it out a little bit easier, which is nice. Okay, so the pocket clip is again tip up, right hand side only. People have been saying this is ugly, and I'd have to agree with them. It is really, really large. It makes it really apparent that you have a knife in your pocket if you know, your sweater or jacket isn't covering this up. Not a huge deal though. I mean, I don't really care, but just the way they kind of put it on the knife is kind of strange. But the overall design of this knife, actually, when I first saw it, didn't appeal to me. I mean, if you just kind of put it down like that, it's a very unique and almost awkward looking design. But I'd have to say it grew on me for quite a while, and then I bought it. And after I bought it, I fell in love with the design. It just looks cool to me now. But I do remember I wasn't quite sure what to think of it when it first came out. I have EDC this quite a bit in the past, but again, since that tip is so thin, I tend not to use it very hard, and I don't like that because when I use my knives for EDC, I don't want to worry about them, you know, breaking or anything like that. So this kind of sits as, I wouldn't say a collector's piece for me, but I don't EDC it too much. I do EDC it now and then, but again, it is very bulky. You can see kind of the width of the knife there. It takes up a lot of room in the pocket, and the military I already find is pretty big this way, but I mean, I EDC this a lot. But it is a little bit big there, you can see at the widest point. But the Onslaught at the widest point is still thicker by quite a bit than the military. So it does take up a lot of room in your pocket. So just know that if you're planning to EDC this. Benchmade actually recently, or maybe not so recently, came out with a mini Onslaught. And I haven't held one of those ones yet, but I mean, it's basically the same thing, just smaller. So if you like the overall design of this knife, just look into the, or sorry, but you don't want such a large knife, look into the mini, and I'm pretty sure it's basically the same knife. So that's my review on the 741 Benchmade Onslaught, designed by Bob Lum. Very, very cool knife. I'll post the MSRP and the dimensions of the knife in the description again. So thanks for watching, and see you guys next time.